having loved ones whether they are your children, your offspring, or whose offspring you happen to be, meaning your parents, or any kind of loved one, someone that you are emotionally attached to, or some people, someone who are significant to you. The Buddha says are also traps. Why? Do they do something bad? Are they the cause of it? No, of course not. They are blessings in life. They are individuals, people, beings that make life meaningful for us. So this does not mean that the Buddha is teaching us to be cold, indifferent to other people's plight or difficulties or even threat to their lives. We do what we can, especially in terms of one's parents. However, when the conditions are not possible for us to help them to come out of a difficult situation, like a war, where there's a threat of war, what do? Having lived in such a place, having gone to places like that, and stayed in places where there were wars going on, and I had people whom I cared about, as a bhikkhu, whose family members were dying, and then I had to see them the following week and see the devastation that they had, the whole family had to go through. And then the following week or the following month, another member of their family was killed. So here is a very close, direct understanding of dukkha. So my instruction, my advice will be here to have you use everything that you happen to experience as a way to help you understand the Dhamma. This makes the Dhamma that you're experiencing have the potential for you to gain insights. This is when the Dhamma becomes personally realized, slowly. Otherwise, the Four Noble Truths, etc., all these things are mere concepts. They are not real. Life makes the Dhamma real. Life makes dukkha real. And anyone who has not experienced dukkha cannot experience the release and the relief from dukkha. You must understand this. So the Dhamma is not realized, the fruits of the path are not tasted nor attained, the release or freedom is not attained unless we first do the first step, which is to really see and realize the depth of dukkha instead of running away from it. So the mind here in the question itself is seeking somehow a way to evade, to jump over and negate the fact that there is suffering. Is there a trick that I can actually do, or some steps where I don't feel the pain, or I can fix things? This is another form of craving, camouflaged by a desire to help others. But in essence, it is refusal of what is happening. This is in essence jumping from the painful to the pleasurable feeling. Because ultimately, people die, they will die, we will die. So this is when the vipallasas are to be brought into focus. So you must understand that beings have these distortions in the mind. They're called vipallasa. I've talked about this extensively in the past. But basically, one of them is, or there are four vipallasas, four distortions. One of them is to look at something that is impermanent and hope for it. In fact, the hope disappears and it becomes almost like a given where we are anticipating, we are expecting it to be not impermanent. We are expecting it to be permanent. This is delusion. Okay, this is delusional thinking. This is wrong view. But that's what we do. So to have our loved ones be completely safe where nothing happens, that is not going to happen. That there's no such place. Even if they were living in the middle of Switzerland or somewhere else that is supposedly safe, and as they're going out, something happens, or even if they're sitting at home, one of them has a heart attack. Where was the safety there? They're not living in a war zone Middle East somewhere. There's no threats of bombs falling on their heads. You see, the very presence in samsara is the reason why we have to wake up. Because that's the big unsafe place. There's no safety in samsara. That's why we practice. It's not because we try to be cool or something, or try to have something that others don't, or some knowledge that others don't have. No, we are trying to establish ourselves within truly the safest place, the only safe place, in fact, that is possible. And that is outside of samsara. Otherwise, so many parents we have lost. So many parents we have seen die in front of us. We have buried many, many parents in many lifetimes. I have buried both of my parents. Both of them. Something that I dreaded when I was growing up in my teenage years, my childhood years. I just didn't want to see them die like any loving child. Because that was my safety, I thought. So one of the biggest vipallasas, distortions in the mind, is that, to seek out ways to make something that is already broken, something that is already unstable, stable, permanent. It's not possible. It's crazy, but that's what we do. So the Buddha calls it distortions in the mind, vipallasa. Another one is what is suffering. We want it to be not suffering. We want it to be pleasurable. People go ahead and build relationships. They fall in love. They have families. They have children. They love. Nothing wrong with any of these things, by the way. But you're opening up a Pandora's box, in a sense. How so? Well, you're inviting these possibilities. You're creating potential for rebirth, for other beings, other opportunities, where there is the birth of a new event, such as the birth of a child, the birth of a loving relationship with this person, the growth of a meaningful relationship. Okay, so it had a beginning, right? That's what I'm referring to. Everything that has a beginning has it has an end. That is what we dread. That's another vipallasa distortion, because we look at something that is designed to break apart. Something that is painful, that is dukkha, that is suffering. Yet we want to have it be the exception and not be suffering. You see the other delusional thinking here. So this is another form of, another one is to look at something that is unpleasant or ugly, repulsive, and see it as beautiful, such as the body. If you leave the body the way it is, it's not going to be beautiful. Hair is going to grow in certain areas where you don't want it to grow. Fluid is going to leak out, whether you like it or not, whether it's sweat or, going to the bathroom, urine, etc. You have to wash at least, right? You don't wash, you will smell, including the person that you say you love and you adore, and they're very this, a very beautiful, very okay. Let's see if they don't get proper wash for 3 months, if you really want to be around them, or if you want to see them as they behave in the bathroom. Do you see? This is what I mean by something that is not pleasant to look at, something that is not beautiful, but we want it. We pretend, we believe that it is beautiful, or it should be beautiful. This pretty much puts every plastic surgeon out of business, by the way, because they work on that delusion. They thrive on it. As well as the cosmetic industry, etc., or anything that tries to beautify, so-called, our bodies, our cars, our things, etc., our houses. That's why you have to always wipe the table so that it doesn't collect dust. And the other vipallasa has to do with our perception of having a self when there is none. There is no core to you. There is no essence to you, in me, in anyone, in any one of the loved ones we have. So we are simply simplifying by saying, this is my loved one. These are all conventionalities. Ultimately, this is just one life. We've had countless lifetimes. And chances are, if we don't do our work by penetrating through and realizing at least these distortions, chances are we're going to be stuck in samsara for a long time, which brings with it all kinds of suffering, pain, sorrow, wailing, lamentation, crying for ourselves, for our loved ones, for our safety being ripped apart from us. Just in the last few years, I've seen people die. I've seen family members of those dead people having to leave their homes, their ancestral homes, where they lived for thousands and thousands of years. Why? Because the politics doesn't allow it. People in power, bigger, stronger, well-endowed financially, big, powerful entities decided, no, a few 100,000 people, okay, sorry, just pack up whatever you can and get out of here. But where? A whole life is gone. Culture is gone. Identity is gone. History is gone for these people. Right? Gone so long as there is attachment. That's what the Dhamma teaches. The Dhamma teaches us to see things for what they are, because what we have is the driving force behind us being stuck and chained, shackled by is craving, tanha. That's the problem. From that, there is safety to run away from, to escape from. And that is through the use of wisdom. And the Dhamma has the means for us to apply, to gain that wisdom through the living experience in which we find ourselves, through which we are treading and walking and experiencing. Yes, many of which will be painful, unpleasant, suffering ridden, but that is it. Life is going to present us situations where there is suffering. And nobody's going to become enlightened, awakened in a delightfully peaceful, quiet, where they never experience suffering. They never have to encounter loss. That person is unfortunately in a pitiful state as far as the Dhamma is concerned, because they're just tasting, enjoying yesterday's fare. That means yesterday's good merits, actions that they've done. The merits of those, the consequences of those is what they are enjoying, the credits of those they're enjoying. But they always run out. Being born in a lovely country, lovely place, so-called safe place, where you don't encounter Dhamma, no teaching that shows you that there is loss, this and that. It doesn't feed you lies and deceptions, but shows you the way things are, as well as a way out, hence the Four Noble Truths. When you don't have those options, that is hell. That is truly unsafe, because that's another life that's going to be wasted. So war, battles, unfairness, injustices in the world, when they occur, they're also opportunities. So I hope this is able to give you some answer in regards to finding safety in war-torn places, as well as loved ones who are in danger or possible danger. And if you ask me, we all are in the world today. There is not a single place. When I grew up in Beirut, and it became hell overnight, and it stayed like that for almost 2 decades. And I lived through that. Every day was another exposure to a series of traumas. So I know very well what trauma is, sadly. But at the same time, it's a good thing, because I can also understand and possibly offer some good suggestions that people might find useful. But with the Dhamma, it's always useful. We just have to put our own focal area aside. We have to remove the crosshairs from what we have placed it on, such as, I want to save my loved ones. Yes, if you were able to, but when you're not physically and logistically, it's not possible for you. You don't have that. Okay. You don't just hand over, your sense of safety, but you approach it with wisdom, and that's what the Dhamma provides. So check your own expectations and whether there is the desire to run away from suffering. Because when we run away, it's like you running away from your shadow. You're not going to be successful. It's impossible to run away from pain if you are already born. That's what the Buddha said to someone who came to him crying because he had lost his loved ones. And the Buddha, he asked the Buddha, why do we suffer, Bhante? And he says, Lord Buddha answered him with a question. He said, old man, have you been born? He says, yes, of course. I'm talking to you. I'm alive. He says, there you go. So long as we are born, we are going to encounter the fact of suffering. But It's not a pessimistic affair, because we use suffering to get out of it. Because living in samsara, whether you're living in a mansion, in a beautiful place, in safe, so-called, surrounded by 100,000 security guards and satellites over you, where you have a special shield where nothing could penetrate, guess what? You might have a heart attack and you die. There was a man who tried to beat his odds. And Lord Buddha saw his future. He says, this man will die in 7 days. And he was a very, very wealthy man, and he heard about it. He actually had sent informants to, and just to hear what the Buddha says. Because the incident happened when he didn't like the Buddha, he didn't like the Dhamma, he didn't care for any noble ones, and he wanted to insult, and he wanted to make the bhikkhus, the monks who were going on alms round, as well as the Buddha specifically, he blocked his way. He blocked Lord Buddha's way from going on alms round to get food for 7 days. He blocked the bhikkhus, literally blocked the way. And so the bhikkhus were able to obtain food through other means, where people brought food later, etc. But so he was taunting the Buddha and the Sangha. And he wanted to know if the Buddha would say something bad, curse at him, swear at him, etc. And the bhikkhus asked, what could be a person's outcome from such a terrible, evil action, Bhante? To stop the Buddha from eating his food, to obtain his food, his requisite. The Buddha said, sadly, he will die in 7 days. So what does this man do, this rich person? He locks himself in one of his biggest palaces, in one of his biggest, portions of the palaces, where it's several stories high, and he only allows one of his most trusted attendants, his butlers, to bring him food every day. And he's like, okay, I'm going to wait these 7 days out. I'm going to beat my destiny that the Buddha, so-called this wise person, had, said that I will die. Guess what? On the 7th day, he's like, yes, I made it. I didn't die. And I think it was his horse, his beloved horse, starts going crazy, and he hears it from his, one of his palaces, from his balconies, I'm sorry. And he can't bear hearing the horse neighing and feeling, crying for something. So he's wondering what's happening. So in his rush to go see what is happening to the horse, he fumbles, he actually trips, and he falls down the stairs, and he breaks his neck, and he dies on the spot. In his mansion. In his very, very well-guarded, safe mansion. Wearing his golden sandals. With his perfect health. So this is all a delusion we have. Safety. So there is no safe place when you think of it. The real safety happens when you have broken the bonds of samsara by no longer coming back. That is what the Dhamma can provide for us. So may this be helpful. Sukhiyot.